Hello, Sipsters. Welcome back to another episode of the Sippin' on Stories podcast with me, Mandy Corey, your host. I'm so delighted that you're here. Last week, I did not say that, and you better believe I almost went back and re-recorded just so I could say that line. I was like, how did I do that after however many episodes this has been? 40-something episodes. I've said it every time and I forgot it on my Christmas episode. Anyway, I'll stop rambling about that. It is almost the new year. So obviously now is a time when we are thinking back, trying to think of what are we going to be doing in the new year? What are we going to do differently? What resolutions do we have? What are our goals? All the things. If I'm to say what some of my goals are, I'm going to say one, being on my phone less. I'm putting it out into the universe, so now I have to hold myself accountable. And I'm not terrible, but I would like to try to be on it less. So that is one of my goals. I'm trying to decide if running a marathon's on that list of things. It's not for sure a goal, but it is something I'm toying around with. If not, I'll definitely for sure probably be running another half marathon. So I have a goal of staying in running shape a little bit. And yeah, just trying to improve and become a better person in my relationships with other people, being a better friend, being a better wife, being a better mom, all the things like that. I'm going to try and do better on. I don't super love, honestly, making resolutions because I feel like a failure sometimes when I don't succeed in those said resolutions. So I usually try and think of a word, and I think my word this time is going to be presence. So however that goes into my life. So like I said, presence is not being on my phone and being involved with the people around me a little bit more, or being present, more present in my friendships, more present in my relationships with my family, or being present in my home and making, a better cleaning system. I don't know, whatever it may be, just involving myself more in my home and in my surroundings, whatever that looks like. So I think that's going to be my word. I really like having the word. It doesn't always work, but sometimes it has. So anyway, okay. I wasn't sure what I was going to do for this episode. I do have an episode that I could share and a story that I could share, but also this time of year is when you go back and you reflect on what the past year has been. And so obviously I've reflected a lot on this podcast and what it has been for me in my life, and I am so grateful for it. I don't need to go on my ramblings about that, or how enjoyable it's been. You all know, because I say it every week, I've loved getting to talk to you and hear your stories and meet new people and all the things. But I decided for this last week that we are going to do a recap episode. And if I am being honest, I listened to Armchair Expert with Dax Shepard and Monica Padman, and they do this, and it's where they have clips from previous episodes that they think are some of their best episodes, and they just play clips from them. And honestly, I like it. I've gone back, I hear some clips and I'm like, what was that? And I have to go search for it, and I find it and I listen to that episode. And so it gives me some things to listen to. And so I'm taking that idea, but instead I am going to look back at what our top 10 episodes have been, our highest listened to episodes, and because I don't think I'd be able to pick my personal favorite episodes, that would be really hard for me. And so I'm going to go based off of what the top episodes have been. I'm going to put them in a random order, so you can't quite exactly know which one is the top episode or whatnot, but I'm going to go through those, and I am going to play clips and remind you of the awesome stories that we have heard so far this year. And if you want to go back and listen, I think you should. I think that we could all learn things from some of these stories. I think it's worth re-listening to and being touched by the stories that people share or laughing at the things that they said or, whatever it may be. So I'm going to do that today. And honestly, this was a spur of the moment thing that I decided to do. I was fully planning on getting on and recording and doing my intro to my story. But I'm going to do a recap of 2025 episodes. So here you go. I love you. Here you go. Here is a hit was put out on my kids.
Well, years passed by, and we moved to Pocatello and noticed a story on the front page of the newspaper was this father, Mr. Duke, was in the paper because he was going to court because he had tried to kill his parents unsuccessfully. And I started reading this story thinking, what in the world? Well, it turns out that this Mr. Duke's friend is the one that's pivotal in this story. So let's back up a little bit. I had only met the mother a few times to either talk about Eric or to ask some questions. She was very quiet. She was very to herself. She was always very, very nice and kind. But I didn't know her very well. Anyway, turns out he wanted a divorce, but he didn't want to pay child support. And so in his mind, he wanted to kill Eric so he wouldn't have to pay child support. And he went to his friend who had a criminal background, went to his friend and asked his friend, he said, I want you to do a drive-by shooting for the neighborhood kids, which meant you, all of my kids, because everybody played together. He said, I want you to get all the neighborhood kids so it looks random and it doesn't look like Eric was singled out, and just kill them all as they're playing in the playground. And to read that in the newspaper 10 years later, or I don't remember how many years later it was, but to read that, just my heart just stopped. Anyway, his friend said, no, I'm not going to do that. Well, his friend, once he had heard about Eric's death and the mother's death, he knew immediately what had happened, that the dad had killed them. But because he had that criminal background, he was afraid to go to the police because he felt like he didn't have any credibility with the police, because the dad really was getting a lot of sympathy from the whole town.
Did you ever talk to him after the fact?
The dad?
Yeah.
I did for just a brief moment because Eric's bike, his new bike, was in my yard.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know what to do with it because obviously he's not around. But I didn't want to leave it out so it'd be stolen. And so I knocked on the door and I said, here's Eric's bike. What do you want to do with it? And he said, oh, just leave it here by the step. And that's all I talked to him.
Mm-hmm.
I'd never had any words with him any other time. But anyway, so then what ended up happening was he had used all the insurance money and he's out of money, and he went to his friend again. He said, I want you to kill my parents for the insurance money. And the friend is like, no, I'm not going to do this. And the friend realized if he didn't say something to the police, 2 more people would die. And he didn't want that on his head. And so he went to the police. He told them all about the earlier episode about Eric and the mom and his suspicions, and also told the police that he had come to him to ask him to help him kill his parents. And the police put a wire on him, and he went back to talk to Mr. Duke, and Mr. Duke just fell for everything. He didn't realize his friend was wired up, and he just confessed to everything. And so they went to court and found him guilty. And I'm not sure how long he had to serve in prison. He's probably still in prison for that. And the community was once again shocked, but for a completely different reason.
Next, we have the episode, I Had a Stalker.
So we had just moved into this house, and my husband gets a phone call that was kind of just odd. Like the guy on the other end was like, "Hey, are you Mallory's husband?" And he's like, yeah. Why? They called him on his work phone, which he thought was really odd. And this guy was like, "Yeah, I've been trying to reach her. Can't find her contact information anywhere." And he introduced himself as Detective Feeney, Illinois. That's his name. Yeah, so I was kind of like, when my husband came home and told me about it, I was like, well, a detective couldn't find my number. Like, I'm pretty proud of him.
Yeah.
So anyway, he calls my husband and he's like, "Hey, how did he word it? He was like, I've got this guy." He was like, "Do you by chance know this Park guy?" And my husband's like, "I mean, kind of, like not really. Like I know him, but what am I, like his one phone call or what? Like what's the deal?" And the detective said, "Well, he was arrested recently because um he had been found in his coworker's basement waiting for her to come home."
That's scary.
Yeah.
Did you know
Super scary.
Did you know this person?
No,
Coworker?
the girl?
Okay. Yeah.
No. So this actually all went down over in Illinois.
Okay. That
Yeah,
makes sense why the
so-
detective was from Illinois. Yeah.
Yeah. So this all went down like they had moved, and anyway, so yeah, he was like, yeah, he had been found. I guess she went home, and he left work before her, is my understanding, and was waiting, like knew she was coming home,
Yeah.
and was in her basement, and luckily she like saw something through the window of her basement before she went into her house. And so she ran over to the neighbors and called 911.
That would be so scary.
So scary.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was like, whoa, that's a big deal. So anyway, so he told Caleb that, and he said, "We believe that he has been stalking people before, and one of them was your wife." I guess they had executed a search warrant on his car and found bags with like underwear, hair.
Oh my gosh.
Some of them had like feminine hygiene products in them. Not mine, I was pregnant.
But like used? Or
Yeah, that was
Oh my
my understanding. Yeah. I could like if I think that's what he told me, yeah. So anyway, they were all like labeled. And one of them had my name on it. So he called and he was like, "Yeah, we've been trying to get in touch with your wife so that she can identify the stuff."
Mhm.
And I was like, yeah. So I think my husband was like, "Whoa, this is super crazy." But I don't think, like, when he came home and told me about it, I was like pretty upset. Like, oh my gosh, like a little bit shook and a little bit emotional. And I think that kind of surprised him. Like he was like, "Whoa, I didn't expect this to affect you so much." And I was like, "Well, yeah." He like broke into our house.
Yeah. Like how would that not affect me?
I just think maybe he didn't like really grasp.
Yeah. Like what is going on?
Yeah, like I think he was still just kind of like, this is so weird. So anyway, he came home and told me about it, and he was like, "Here's this detective's number, and he wants you to call him." And so I called him and I talked to him, and he was like, "Yeah, we want you to go and talk to some detectives here in Idaho because we want to make sure that, like, we want to get this guy for as much as we can as this goes to court and everything."
Next is one of my favorite episodes. I will say that because it is with my husband, and that is Tales from a Trauma and Flight Nurse. Do you remember your first or one of your first flight calls that you took?
Yeah, I think that I remember those ones pretty vividly just because it's all new. And I was actually traveling out of state to the base that I was working at, where I was like on orientation, I guess you'd call it. And so you're riding with in my case, a medic partner, because you fly medic, nurse typically, and then the pilot. And so my medic partner was kind of teaching me and just helping me kind of get the hang of things. Anyway, we went on a call, and this was one of the first helicopter rides that I had. We went on a call for an accident on the interstate, and it was quite a ways away from the base that I was working at, and it sounded like it was pretty bad just from the information that we had gotten. You don't get a ton of information on the page. Usually it's just like MVA or
What that means?
motor vehicle accident.
Oh, I thought you said never mind, keep going.
And so it'll just be like MVA. You know, they may have like the most basic information about the patient once you accept the call of like gender and like if they're unconscious or that kind of thing. But usually, you know, it may say like CPR in progress if that's going on. But for the most part, you don't really have any idea like what the patient actually looks like. But when you're in the helicopter, you can kind of radio to the ground contact that's there once you get close enough, and they can kind of relay a little bit of that to you, or they'll like call through our dispatcher, and the dispatcher will come on and say like, hey, they're saying that this patient isn't doing too good, this or that. Anyway, and so we come up and land on scene, and when we got out, like you could just immediately tell that the patient had expired, and the ambulance crew was just getting there before.
When you say the patient expired, that just means they died.
Yes, they were dead.
Okay. You're using fancy terminology.
That's just colloquial language in the medical community. Anyway, and so the ambulance crew was just getting there, and he had been riding a motorcycle with a group of people. They were all from out of state, just kind of doing like a cross-country kind of thing. And there was a flatbed trailer that had stopped in the interstate to like kind of turn off. It was a pretty rural area. And as they were turning off, the rider just ran right into the back of it. And so they had like kind of just left him there where he was, and he was just kind of like leaning up against it. And when I'm like looking at him, and keep in mind, like this is my very first a scene call like landing on the scene of an accident or the scene of a complaint or something like that, versus like I had been in the hospital all this time. So I'd seen stuff like this in the hospital, but it was new, like being there and just being like, you don't know like what to expect or anything. And anyway, we like still like check him out just to kind of see what's going on, see if he really is, you know, breathing or anything like that. And his, as I kind of like lift up his shirt, because he had, you know, you could kind of see that something was going on with his abdomen, and it was completely sliced open, and just like everything was just like hanging out. And so you're just like, okay, yeah, like he is he's not good. Yeah, he's not going to survive this. But I mean, it is different just because the environment is different. You know, like in a hospital, everything's controlled. They bring him in like on a stretcher. You know, move him over. You can look at a patient and just be like, okay, like, you know, CPR's already in progress. They're doing CPR on somebody like that, and so, you know, working pre-hospital, you just see a lot more, because like a patient like that, you wouldn't typically transport to the hospital because there's nothing that can be done. You know, it's not survivable, and they've already expired, passed away, and
all of his friends are probably gathered around.
Yeah, they were just sitting there, and you know, being on scene, that's also different. Like people obviously have people pass away in the hospital, and they come in and they're grieving and like trying to deal with those emotions. When you're on a scene, it's like even more so, because it like just happened right in front of them. And you know, whether it be somebody, you know, died in their own home or out on the road or whatever it may be. Like, people are like trying to process those emotions and process everything that's going on. And so it just feels different, even though, you know, it's kind of the same job. But, so that was like my first scene call.
Next, we have how I became addicted to painkillers.
And he's like, I know you really like these hydros, but I have something stronger that I think you'll really love. And I don't think that he even meant any ill intent. I think it was just like, I'm hanging out with my girlfriend and want to have extra fun. And so he introduced me to Oxy. The first couple of times I took it, I remember being like, no, this just makes me want to sleep. This is weird. Still didn't think that it was a huge deal. It wasn't like, oh, this is wrong. It's weird. It's weird looking back on that and not thinking that it was wrong.
I feel like the progression of it, I mean, it's just like little things over and over. So
it was very slow.
Where if you jump to all of a sudden taking Oxy, then it might feel big, but at that point.
Right. And it wasn't like, well, I wasn't buying it. I think he was, but I didn't know that. I was pretty innocent.
Did you say you were still like around 16?
This had progressed over a few years. Okay. So I was like around 16 when like the wisdom teeth and stuff happened. And then this was more around like 18 because I had just graduated and was working when I worked at Converges. Sorry, I should be better with the timeline.
Oh, that's okay.
So 18 is kind of when it started progressing like hardcore. Okay. But I think that I always had the memories in my head of my wisdom teeth and like cramps, right? Like taking it and feeling good. And so almost looking forward to being able to take it, but not abusing it yet, I guess. That's what I'm trying to say, if that makes sense. But yeah, so he introduced me to Oxy, and I remember we took it every day for like a week. And I was also working at Jamba Juice, and one of my friends worked there with me. And one day I was like so sick, and I was like, I think I need to go home. I'm feeling so sick, like the flu. And this kid that I worked with kind of knew that I had been taking Oxy. He's like, I think you're withdrawing. And I was like, no, I'm not. Like, you know, like that's crazy. And, I was like sitting there thinking about it, and I was like, oh my gosh, I am. Still didn't think I had a problem. Just was like, oh, it's like when people drink a lot, and I just need to like slow it down or stop taking it or whatever.
The day that you hadn't taken it?
Yeah, I had been just a day, just like that day, which I'd never withdrawn before from anything. So I didn't know, I didn't know. You hear, and I feel like for me, when I would think of addiction, I would think of like gross people that are homeless and like have scars and stuff all over their face, and just like super gross people, right? Yeah. Like, not that there's anything wrong with them. They have, they're fighting whatever they're fighting.
But that's still the vision you kind of have in your head of those,
right? Like
those people.
You think of like the movies, right? Yeah, and so like I'm like this, little Mormon girl from Idaho, and I'm just like, that's not me. I'm, I can function. I have a job. I'm like in college. I was going to ISU at the time. I went to like, I don't know, a year. Anyway, a whole nother story. But I just thought, I'm functioning. It's like not that big of a deal, but I need to like slow down if this is what's making me feel bad, right? Well, day 2 of feeling that crappy, I was like, no, I can't. It's like, it's bad. It's such a horrible feeling. It's like you're sick, but way worse. And so I like called the kid that I was dating and was like, I need something to like help me. And it just, I feel like that's when it was like all downhill from there. But I still didn't think that I had a problem. I would have been like, no, I'm not an addict. Fast forward probably like a year of trying to stop, but also using. wasting all my money that I had saved. I saved like thousands of dollars lawn mowing growing up that was supposed to be for like college and stuff. I blew through all of that like so fast.
Just paying your boyfriend for what he was buying, or were you finding it on your own?
Yeah, and at that point I had people that I was calling too. Like it got to a certain point that if he couldn't get any or if he was gone, there was a point where he moved away for a little bit. So but they were like friends, right?
Yeah.
They were friends. They weren't drug dealers. They were just like people that I would party with sometimes. And so I would talk to them. A lot of them were religious. A lot of them were in the church. And so it just didn't seem, it didn't seem
like it was that bad. Here is finding out my husband was gay.
And so he, I think at the time, was just trying to figure out like what I had seen because he didn't know. And I know he was scared. And so I left and I was going to go live with my sister. And he kept calling and I finally answered. And we talked and he talked me into coming back to the house. And he basically told me that it was like a bromance that went too far. And honestly, like now it's kind of funny saying that because I'm like, what does that mean? Like, why did I think that that was okay? And I don't know. Like, I mean, I just feel like in the moment it was like, I guess like the best way to describe it is, because it's funny, people will come to me and tell me things and I'm like, well, you got to get out of that. But like, you don't know what you're
Like,
okay with.
You're in it.
Yes, until like you're presented with that.
Not
Like,
to mention, like, you're pregnant. Like, it's not as easy as just being like, oh, no, I'm going to leave. Like, he's already in your life. You're having a baby.
yeah.
And
you
I
love
think
this
it's really
person.
easy. Yeah, you do love them. And you're also trying to protect yourself, too. Like, I think it would be easy for me to, like, talk my way through it, back into it. Yeah.
Yeah. And, like, he knew me. And I'm not saying that he was, like, intentionally, like, trying to be manipulative or anything. Like, 'cause I really don't feel like that's who he is. But I do know he was scared. And it was something that he was like, whoa, what have I done?
Mm-hmm.
And I am not saying that this made it okay, but, like, I had been absent. Like, I would go to work, I'd come home, I would throw up until I went to sleep. I felt like crap. And so I know he felt alone. And so I think he allowed like more of that side of him to open up because he had this coworker that he got really close with. Anyways, so I asked him a lot of questions. I was like, I just feel like it's weird. Like, why are you sending pictures? Like, like what is going on? And he just basically phrased it like, well, it's probably like when you joke with your friends. And so I think more than anything, I just wanted to believe that. And so I was like, okay, whatever. Like, and I also feel like it stemmed from like growing up in an alcoholic home where it's like, well, tomorrow will hopefully be better. Because there's certain days that like were really, really bad and that brought you a lot of sorrow, but you always knew that tomorrow could be better. So I feel like I kind of like had that mentality. So life went on. Sometimes my timeline gets messed up, but our marriage was always like, as far as like the intimate side, it really was not there. And I can say that with confidence now that I'm like remarried in like a healthy relationship, like intimately. Is that weird to say? I don't know.
I think so.
But
we're all adults here.
yeah, we're all adults.
Yeah.
But I'm like, yeah, like that was never there.
Here is I refused to date my husband.
And he's like, can we go can we go for a drive? And I really don't want to, but somehow I end up in his car. I'm wearing like mismatched ugly sweats. Yeah, my cheeks I have like probably dried blood on my face, let's be honest.
Yeah.
Like, it's not a pretty picture. I'm actually like wrapped up in a blanket my princess blanket that my first boyfriend Michael had given me because he was a great gift giver, and I still use that blanket. Like just the whole thing, it feels like straight out of like a teen movie. He drives us like around a corner, parks at the park in my neighborhood, and proceeds to break up with me in the most like rip your heart out and stomp on it kind of way. And it feels pretty easy to remember how he said it because it feels so specific. He said, "I am like a pot full of boiling hot water on a burning stove." You're looking at me like this doesn't sound familiar.
I am sure you've told me, but it's
Oh
not
my
sounding
gosh.
familiar.
Yeah.
I'm like a pot.
Which I
Yeah.
wish I could remember how he even like launched into this. Like
Yes.
I don't know, but just suddenly he's telling me he's a hot pot on a boiling whatever. And he said, "And for some reason you are hanging on." I remember the words, "for some reason." For some reason you are hanging on. And it is burning your hands and you will not let go. And I need you to let go. I was like,
It's kind of intense.
so intense. Like, and again, back to him not being cruel, I really think he was trying to come up with like the correct way to do it and didn't know how, maybe. I don't know. Like, like,
Yeah.
so mean. Like, for some reason, you are hanging on and will not let go. I need you to let go. And then he starts launching into, "And I know your hands are blistered and they're going to burn and it's going to hurt and it's going to take a while, but eventually they will heal and you will be okay."
And this is an 18-year-old boy.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I'm like kind of coming to like, okay, he's okay. Like, I guess he's finally breaking up with me. I guess I'm not good enough after all. And of course I'm blaming myself. I can't even look at like, maybe this isn't a person I actually want to marry. Like, it's insane that I ever thought this. There's nothing about him that would be what I would want in a spouse at all. Like, he doesn't have any of the things that I personally for myself need on my list. But I wasn't good. Like, I'm the one that's not good enough for him.
Yeah.
Right? It was so upsetting. And it's about this moment that I'm like, okay, I just have a question. Why is Michael here? Because I bet you all forgot that Michael is here and he's sitting in the back seat while B breaks up with me, rips out my heart, and stomps on it in front of Michael. Why is he sitting back there? What
Michael's just
on
sitting there.
earth?
No.
Okay. It's so weird.
Yeah.
Oh, I also should say B brought me an icy. So that,
That was nice.
well,
Or
but
was it
Michael
not?
brought me
He
a
did bring
jamba.
nicer.
Yeah, I married the right person. Anyway, so I ask, why the flip is Michael here? And then he proceeds to explain to me that he thinks Michael and I are a good match. And I remember him using the words, "Nothing would make me happier than my two best friends getting married." What business did we have talking about marriage so much when we're 18 years old? I don't know.
You and Michael kissed at this point?
No.
Okay, yeah.
No,
yeah.
like I have zero interest in Michael at all.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's nothing between us at this point. And he's like, "Nothing would make me happier than my two best friends getting married." So then I said this like infamous line that Michael loves to laugh about still. I'm flabbergasted that B is bringing up that Michael and I should get married. Mm-hmm. So I, with all of the rage in my soul and all of the emotions and all of the everything, the gauze in my mouth, I like get so mad and I scream, "Even if I don't marry you, I will never marry Michael." And I got out of the car and slammed the door and like walked away.
Next, we have I Burst My Spine.
And I was like, sure, I'll try it. And so anyways, I got on this horse and I remember the first thing that I thought of was, holy cow, this thing's massive. And I don't know if it was much bigger than the other horses I've been on, but for whatever reason, it felt like a huge horse. It was super tall. It felt super big. And so once I got
you're a
on,
tall person,
and I'm
so,
yeah, and it just was and so I was a little bit intimidated and nervous getting on, and so I kind of asked like, okay, what do I do here? And it was just kind of this fenced off area that actually he had actually tilled the dirt that morning, so the dirt was super soft, and it was ready for riding and everything, and so I was kind of like, okay, what do I do? And the only direction I really got was, just pull the reins. You pull the reins this way and that makes him move, pull it that way and that makes him move. And so anyways, we kind of got going and we were okay for a while. I had taken a couple videos even on my phone, like of Cameron doing it, and we were taking pictures. And anyways, Cameron kind of got into a run with his horse because he's natural and knows how to do that. Yeah. For whatever, my horse was kind of anxious in the beginning, it felt like to me. He was flicking his head and I was like, am I bugging him? What am I doing wrong? And they kind of were just like, he's fine. It's just the flies in his eyes bugging him.
Is this horse like used to having people ride?
Yeah, it's a trained horse and it's been ridden lots of times. And so anyways, I felt like the horse was really anxious. And as soon as my husband's horse got into a run, mine just decided it wanted to start running without any prompting at all.
You said it was in like a fenced area? Was it like a fenced field or like a circle?
It was like like an oval, like a big oval.
I'm trying to think of like what I've seen on like Western movies.
Yeah.
I've never ridden a horse, but I like the show. Have you seen the show Heartland? Oh, it's a really cute show. But anyway, it's where they train their horses, and it's just a little circle. So that's what I was envisioning.
Yep, that's what it is. So he kind of just started running, and I don't even know how to describe. I basically just froze up. I don't know if I've ever in my life felt like that, where I kind of had dropped the reins and held on to the saddle, and my mind kept telling me like, grab the reins. Like, that's how you stop the horse.
Yeah.
So you grab the reins. And for I just felt like I was going to fall off.
Yeah.
So I was holding on for dear life.
Of course.
And I could not, for the life of me, get my hands to move and grab the reins. So what happened was he was kind of going at a diagonal. And so he kind of was going diagonal, and then he turned, headed straight onto the other side of the fence, where I could see everybody standing there. And again, my panicked brain kept telling me, grab the reins, grab the reins, grab the reins. And he took a sharp 90 degrees. And when he did that sharp turn, it flung me off the horse back into the fence. And so when I hit the fence, it burst my spine. So I had a burst spinal fracture. I had a total of 7 fractures from my head to my toes. Let's see, I had a brain bleed. I had a concussion because the back of my head hit the fence.
Yeah.
And then we didn't even realize it until we got to the hospital because my back was in so much pain. But I had broken my ankle because it was stuck in the it had gotten stuck in the little foot.
Like the harness. Right,
yeah, whatever that's called.
I clearly don't know anything.
Me neither. It got stuck in that foothold while I was flipped out. So it must have done something to break it, or not break it, but fracture it.
Next up on our top 10 is how I gained 1.5 million YouTube subscribers. Do you want to tell the story about the guy that came to your house?
Okay, yeah. So, yeah, this is gonna sound creepy, and it is super creepy. But also, I love the guy, and I anyway. So here's what happens. I make a video on. It was like, if I don't get this brawler, I'm gonna smash this tablet, and it sounds like I have rage in me or something like that. It was actually a really old tablet. We were retiring it either way.
It didn't matter if you broke it.
It didn't matter. It was like we were going to destroy it. So it was either in the trash can or I get to smash it with a hammer. So I didn't get the new brawler, and so I decided to smash it with the hammer. And I went out to my outside balcony, smashed it with the hammer. And as I'm turning the camera, there is this 3-second just clip where you can see this Target behind me, like the store Target. And so one of my viewers saw that one little clip and he was like, I think I know where that is. He knew the state that I was in because I said that in a video. And he was like, I'm pretty sure I know where this is. And so from watching that, he figured out that we were on the top floor of this 3-story apartment complex and figured out the exact apartment that we were at
Just crazy.
from that 3-second clip. And he knocks on the door, and I'm working, and my wife is breastfeeding at the time, and like, we were postpartum, like
Things were a mess. It was crazy.
postpartum sucks.
Yeah.
It's just like not as like it's just a hard time in everybody's life. Anybody who says it's awesome, they're lying, I think. But anyways, not a great time. And she opens the door, and he starts like shaking, and she's like, "What is going on?" He's like, "Ah, hi." I don't remember what he said, but it was clearly like she was like, I think my husband. She's like, "Do you know Kairos?" And he was like, "Yeah, yeah, I do." And she was like, "Okay, let me go get him. This is weird." Meanwhile, our newborn's on the couch. My wife's been breastfeeding and doing all sorts of stuff. And like our 4-year-old is in her diaper or whatever. Like it's not. Anyway, so I come out, and he hands us this envelope of $500 cash.
Yeah.
Because he wanted to donate it to us because he really appreciated what we were doing, and didn't want any of the money to go towards, like if you donate on
Fees or
YouTube, then
anything.
yeah, exactly. He wanted it all to go towards us, and we used that money to buy a new dryer, which we desperately needed at the time. And anyway, yeah, to this day, I still know the guy. We still DM privately. I had actually DM'd him privately beforehand. I knew who he was before he showed up. I had no idea he was going to show up.
Yeah.
I didn't know that he lived anywhere close to us.
I could
But
figure
that
out where you were by
definitely-
that target in the background.
Yeah, so now we have security cameras. We don't film anything outside anywhere close to where we live. We don't mention the state that we live in. We, at least not on videos.
Yeah.
We that was a nice wake up call.
Lesson, yep.
And I'm glad that it ended with somebody giving us money than somebody doing harm to us.
And then you moved and didn't have to worry about that anymore with that.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
so
we
funny.
moved soon after that.
Yeah.
Once we could. So, yeah. But yeah, it's been interesting.
Up next, we have My Husband Drugged Me.
And it's like we talked for 45 minutes, and finally, like at the end of that 45 minutes, she was like, "I wanted to tell you this in person," but she was like super, super drunk, and they did have sex. They had sex in the morning when I was at work, and then came and brought me my lunch,
Oh, yeah.
and then she flew home, and that's why it was so freaking awkward. And then it was just like a light bulb went off. Like anytime I talked to my sister, like that whole next year, because it was like a year since they slept together, and I left like a year later.
Yeah.
But my sister and I would talk on the phone and stuff, and every time he'd be like, "Who are you talking to?" "Oh, with my sister." "Oh, what are y'all talking about?" Like every time. He was scared. Like he was
Yeah.
scared she was going to tell me. And she did tell me. And I've been to hell and back with my sister, but I love my sister. I have a good relationship with my sister. It's like hard to explain. And like she knows that like the part that isn't great is that she like started drinking with my husband, knowing that it was something that like I wouldn't have wanted to happen.
Yeah.
But like I just know how it all went down. I called him up so fast. I was like, I think I texted him. I was like, "So you had sex with my sister?" And he called me and said she came on to me.
Oh,
and
of
I
course
was like,
she did.
"Stop,
Oh, my gosh.
stop. Like, absolutely not. I do not want to hear that. Because I know it wasn't true.
Yeah.
So
Still lying a year later.
yeah.
Was it hard to
It-
forgive your sister?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was.
Mhm.
It was like it was a really rough little go of things. But like the thing is, I think at the same time, I felt really bad for bringing this drama into the family because like
It wouldn't have happened if I wouldn't have married him.
yes,
Yeah. Mhm.
it was like, oh, I think that a lot of my anger was misplaced. I think a lot of that anger was really like towards myself, just like some self-loathing for like my poor choices, like knowing in my gut, like not breaking off the engagement when I should have, like staying for too long because it wasn't like it was a very long marriage, but I really should have left way earlier into the marriage. And just like really knowing like I know that some people would look at me and be like, well, how could you talk to your sister? Or how could you get over that? But like,
There was so much there. Like,
so much.
Yeah.
I truly understand. Like, I can see this thing from every angle. And she made mistakes and she has her own problems. But it was a lot easier being me during that time than being her, because all my siblings knew. And like my mom and my dad and some of our close family friends, it was easier being the victim than being part of the problem,
Yeah.
you know? So I got a lot of sympathy and a lot of like people in my corner.
and I'm sure she's just lived with that regret that
Yeah.
whole time too.
She
Like,
just went through hell and back on her own. And we had a big come to Jesus like quite a few years ago now. And you know what? We really are good. We really are in a solid place. Despite him, we're okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's definitely a real bad thing that happened in our family. There's some family pictures with him in it that just need to burn forever.
And last, we have The Ones I've Lost, which deals with mental health awareness.
I remember him walking in the door, and it was just like, okay, that wasn't long enough for you to get there. I think I had the presence of mind to know, like, whatever it was going on. So I had asked my neighbor to come get my kids. And so my kids weren't home. And I'd called a friend and she'd come over. And I just remember him walking in and saying they found him. And I remember, and he said where and what had happened. And I just remember hitting the floor. And it was honestly the worst day of my life. I think worse than the day I found out I had cancer. I'd had miscarriage. Like, it was the worst pain. And it will be 10 years this Mother's Day weekend, whatever. I think it falls on a Friday, so the Friday before. My dad never would have ruined Mother's Day like that. He was completely gone. Like, who he actually was. Like, I don't think he could think. I don't think it was a decision he made. He had talked about voices in his head, or, you know, I think just Satan, like the darkness of depression is a very easy way for him to get to you. Because if you make a choice like that, it's like a small little win for him, even though not really, because I believe you can be redeemed. And I know my dad has made choices on the other side and is doing well. All I know the things I know should lead me to not be so sad and miss him, but they don't.
Of course.
It is a huge gaping hole. My twins are going to graduate this year, and it is so bittersweet. The twins were 7 and Caitlin was 4. The twins remember him. Caitlin, I don't think really does.
He remembers the stories of him maybe a little more.
Yeah. So I'm going to have to talk with all of them. Only as far as I know, one of my twins knows what really happened, because she figured it out and asked. Like I said, this is not something I just go around talking about. But I decided it's enough of a problem that it's time to stop being secretive. And I'm actually been going to school the last, I don't even know, like 4 years, getting my degree in marriage and family relations. So I can try to somehow tackle this problem. I don't really know how or what I'm going to do, or even if I'm strong enough to actually work in that field of suicide prevention. But I know it needs attention. So since since that day, I've found out that men, online it says 65 and up, but my dad was, are the highest risk group. I never would have ever thought that.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
And males are a lot more prone to it than females. Now, in my stories, they were all men, but I did know of females doing it, and it's all the things I've learned are no one can predict anything, but as a person, if you see someone rapidly change, like their personality, they're not eating, they're not sleeping, ask them if they need help. The vast majority won't let you, but there could be that one who will, who might talk to you, who might let you take them to the doctor, who maybe just needs that person to reach out.
I wish that I could go back and recap all 40 or so episodes that we have done. I would love that, but this episode would be way too long. Also, if you recorded and you were like, why wasn't I in the top 10? It is close. There are a lot of close ones. So if you are not in that group, don't worry. You are not far behind, and it is nothing to do with what I thought of the episode or how wonderful your story was or anything like that. Like I said, I wish I could showcase all these episodes. If there's one that you would like to go back and listen to, please do that. And while you're at it, go through the entire catalog. Maybe you missed one. Maybe there's one that stood out to you a little bit more. And go ahead and re-listen to it. If you need a little something extra to do during this break that you have before New Year's, maybe you listen to some and they can give you some New Year's goals of your own. I don't know. But I would love it. I'm sure the person that told the story would love it. But if not, and you're looking for a new story, we will be back next week in the new year for a brand new episode. I'm looking forward to 2026. I'm so excited to see what I have in store for me, for this podcast, for you. So until next year, you guys, Sipsters, goodbye, and I'll talk to you in 2026.